Welcome to the Money Maven Project podcast. If you're here to learn how to obtain freedom over your time and money through real estate investing, you're in the right place. Create the life you want by living with intention and becoming a maven in mindset, money, and real estate. Now, here's your host, Justin Monk.
Hey, this is Justin Monk with the Money Maven Project podcast. Super excited today. We got Zachary Beach on with us, who has an awesome story. And I'm super excited to hear his story and some lessons that we can learn from it. So, Zachary, go ahead, kind of give us an intro to your story, your background, where you come from, and where you are today.
I appreciate it, Justin. As I was telling you offline, I mean, I'm just humbled to be invited on podcasts, and I'm excited to dive into this episode and see if I can bring your audience some value here. So I come, if we went way far back, I come from a single mother. My dad was in and out of our lives, and then as I grew up, I would say heavily involved in drugs, and had that scenario, I should say. Lost a lot of friends. It was a pretty crazy time growing up in central Massachusetts, right outside Worcester, in the early 2000s, late 2000s, like 2008 through 2012. It was pretty rampant, pretty crazy. But I made it out, and I'm lucky for that, as some of my friends didn't. So when I went off to college, I really had no idea what I wanted to do. I just went to college because everybody told me I couldn't. And that's more or less the story of my life. Challenge me on something, and I promise you, I will, kick and scream and claw my way to the top if possible. But I had a lot of help along the way as well, so I can't say I did it myself. So I went to college, got a degree in marketing, and then once I ended that, my marketing degree went to a ton of work into bartending. So I started bartending did that for about 4 years, and also personal trained on the side as well. I figured, hey, I like going to the gym. I might as well get paid to be here. Yeah. But as you can imagine, the hours in which I was working bartending, which was typically late at night, and then personal training is typically early in the morning, I was getting naps throughout the day. And after about 4 years of that, you get rather burnt out. Plus, I didn't see like the light at the end of the tunnel. I saw a lot of my friends stay in the bar industry, and some of them still there, and some of them moved up to managers and things like that. But I didn't see myself as a lifelong industry in that aspect. So me and my wife started looking for other avenues. And my father-in-law, Chris, which I know you interviewed on this podcast, and my partner, he was in real estate and had been in real estate for a long time. And he recently, just a couple of years prior, started diving into this other niche, creative financing. So I went to him, and on top of the other 2 gigs I had going on, I said, hey, I don't know if I'm gonna like real estate or not, but do you mind if I more or less join you? And what we started out with was cold calling to an expired listings list. And I would do that for a couple hours a day in between my other gigs. And I did that for about 3 or 4 months, and I started to get a hang of it. And I said, hey, it's time to cut bait here. And I more or less burned the ships. I quit my bartender job. I stopped accepting clients at personal training, and I dove on into real estate. And it took me even about 6 months in order to get my first deal under agreement. But it was definitely a trying period of time. It was a little risky at the time. I didn't have a ton saved as I was a bartender. Yeah. But I knew I had to do that in order to take that next leap into my life. And now we're about just over 7 years now, or just above 7 years now of being fully in real estate. And I've seen some good successes, and I've seen some ups and some downs, but it's definitely been a great journey.
Yeah. Yeah, that's cool. So what did you see in real estate investing that intrigued you, that drew you to it?
Just like everyone else, right? The promise It's like the American dream. It's like the promise of what real estate can bring you. It's like, if you read any single book, it's like the majority of billionaires out there are heavily weighted in real estate and have made their masses in real estate. They all have great businesses, but it's the real estate that they acquire along the way that sustains their wealth. So that was always what it was. I didn't have a major, say, like financial literacy background, and I guess I just didn't know what I didn't know. So I just assumed that real estate was going to be good, that everything was going to be magical once I joined.
Yeah.
And then I realized how much hard work it was involved.
Yeah.
But then I think that's when I fell in love with it, was at that point, because I've pretty much accomplished anything in my life through pure grit and will. So as soon as I got into real estate, it's like, oh, this is that type of game.
Yeah.
I think that's when I started falling in love with it, and stuck with it ever since.
Yeah. I love that. And how did you meet Chris? I mean, that's obviously a big step in in the process here. How did you meet Chris?
Yeah, I met him in middle school. I've
Oh,
been
wow.
dating his daughter, and I married her when we were in our 20s, but I started dating her when I was 12 years old. So I've been around my family, or Kayla's family, and now
Yeah.
mine, for quite a long time. I always compare myself to, I am like the person that Robert Kiyosaki was talking about when he talked about Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Like my father, biological father, very blue collar.
Yeah.
Didn't really sustain a job much. Definitely a great person, but just wasn't really around. And then my father-in-law, Chris, he's been involved in real estate, understood a lot of dynamics that I didn't even knew existed.
Yeah.
So I was lucky enough to be able to get a mentor in
Yeah.
the family.
Yeah.
And now a business partner, which is it's been fun. But as you can imagine, being part of a family business, there's some certain challenges that come with it, but yeah, I wouldn't trade it for the world.
Yeah. Well, I love that because obviously you guys have figured out how to be successful at it. And I mean, there's a lot of people out there, even like Dave Ramsey is always talking about how partnerships that are inside the family they never work, but you guys have obviously figured out how to make it work. And the company, so my main job, I'm a part owner and the sales manager at a solar sales organization, and the CEO is a cousin of mine. But we've been able to make family things work. So I definitely don't. I wouldn't. I definitely recommend people be careful with it because it can get sideways on you pretty quick. But if you have the right mindset and you're able to keep those things, the family stuff aside from the business side, I think you can make it work. So that's cool. And obviously it's going very well for you guys.
Yeah, Justin, I think it's just important that you set some ground rules, and I'm sure you can attest to this with your cousin. And that's, look, you have to learn how to be able to separate business and family. And what I mean by separate is don't bring home the crap.
Yeah.
It's okay to talk about the good things. Honestly, I don't think me and my father-in-law talk about much more other than business and probably my kids. But we talk about the positive things. We talk about, the dreams, the goals, building the team and all of those great dynamics. And the crap you got to leave at the office because it's toxic for everyone. And there's no point of dwelling on it anyways. Even if he wasn't my father-in-law, I would highly recommend that.
Yeah.
I think the dynamic that everybody always worries about is the money issues that come into play.
Yeah.
And I think it's all about open communication and dialogue when it comes to money. And I think a lot of us have a lot of money paradigms. I certainly do. I certainly have plenty of them. But when Dave Ramsey's talking about that, he's more worried about how people are going to handle money within a family. You don't want to break up a family, due to money. That's not necessary. There's so many ways to make money. So we just always been really clear. And him being, my partner and father-in-law, I mean, we look at the books all the time. We look at the money that's coming in. We look at the money that's going out. We allocate what's necessary, and we make collaborative decisions. And I think that's why it works, is because we have different strengths, and then we look at the goals that are at hand or the challenges at hand, and we give both of our perspectives, and we come to a clear, concise decision. And at that time, you both bought in, so there's no back and forth. You made a decision, whether it turns out to be good, bad, or indifferent. That was a decision that was made.
Yeah. That's huge. I think that's a good mindset to have if you're venturing into a partnership with somebody that's in the family. That's some ground rules, good mindsets to have. That's definitely good advice. So tell us a little bit about maybe some of the mindset shifts that you had to have to go from kind of where you were early on in life to being successful in real estate. What are some hurdles you had to overcome?
Oh, where to begin?
Mhm.
I'm a major. I would say, that's all I do is study personal development. Coming from being in a position where I was addicted to drugs when I was younger, and basically told the majority of the time frame that I wasn't going to be successful, and that was nobody else's fault other than myself. Like I look back, and I was, when I was a kid, I was always mad at my teachers. They're telling me I'm not going to be able to accomplish this, and then I'm sitting there and I look back, and I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, well, why would they think anything other than what I showed them for the past 8 years or 6 years? So it's funny looking in hindsight now. Well, I would say the major thing, and the one key aspect that I learned over, say, the course of the 7 years in particular in real estate, and that is that the understanding that so when I was a bartender, I made roughly $25,000 a year, and then, say, personal training, I brought in maybe another 25, or even maybe less than that. So I was bringing to the world $50,000 worth of value. So that's what I was attracting. And in order to become a millionaire, per se, there was a $950,000 value gap that I had to bring to the world in order to become a millionaire. So in order to get to a place of where I was able to attract that money, it's always, who do I need to become? It's not necessarily what do I need to do. So that's when I got to work and said, all right, well, if all of these mentors out there are millionaires, what do they know that I don't know? How are they bringing additional value to the table? So that way the universe, basically, or the people surrounding them are handing them money, and it's attracting money through different assets or maybe coaching programs or whatever it was. So I started really studying those dynamics of what it meant to bring that much value. But it wasn't until I understood that there's a major gap. And I teach this to our associates, or the people I buy and sell real estate with in our coaching programs. And that is, look, you can't come in day one worth 50,000 expecting you're going to make $1 million that year. It's not realistic. We have to work on who you're going to become in order to attract that $1 million. So as soon as you understand that dynamic, it becomes really easy to say, what's the number one thing I need to do? I need to pour and invest into myself, so that way I can bring that type of value.
Man, that's so huge. I wish I could give you a standing ovation right now, because that is so profound, and it's not mentioned enough across, on podcasts and Instagram, all those places. I mean, you just don't hear that message. Like, you understood that you were providing $50,000 worth of value to the economy, to others, to the universe, whatever you want to call it. And so you understood that to make more, you needed to bring more value. And then you ask the appropriate questions, not, well, why am I not a millionaire? Why are other people a millionaire and I'm not? Like, that's not fair. You didn't go there. You went, well, okay, who do I need to become to become a millionaire? Personally, like inside, like who do I need to become? Those are the more appropriate questions. Who do I need to know? Who do I need to meet? Who do I need to network with? Who do I need to, what kind of a person do I need to become? Who do I need to help? What do I need to learn? Those are the questions that people need to ask, not, well, why is he a millionaire and I'm not? Like, that's not fair. Like, that's very, that's super mindful, or at least aware of, you were aware of what the difference was and what questions you need to be asking. And that's helpful for a lot of people, I think.
Yeah, and I wish I knew that like day one. And I can't say like I was this mindfulness guru that all of a sudden I was like, I got the question.
Yeah.
It's just been over years at a time. I started to reflect, which I think is an important skill to have. And it's not an easy skill, but reflection, or people would just say journaling. But having a reflection period and doing that as often as possible, so that way you don't make the same mistake twice. Or if somebody teaches you a learning lesson and you still have to, so you don't have to still, actually live that learning lesson, is the most important. I think like knowledge is, I forget the exact saying, but they're saying like, knowledge is you making a mistake and learning from it. Wisdom is learning from others who make that mistake, so you don't have to.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So it's just, so after I've done some reflection, and I try to do it every night at this point in time, and it's just a habit that I built up, like going to the gym and working on muscle, you start to get that feedback from yourself a lot quicker. And the faster that turnaround that you can give yourself feedback of like, hey, you know what? Today was great because of A, B, and C. I should implement that more. Or today was absolutely terrible. What happened during today? How did that make me feel? And how can I eliminate that so tomorrow I don't do the exact same thing?
Yeah.
I was told, I can't, this isn't me, but I've been teaching this to a lot of my students, because over the weekend, I go to see a naturopath and I get acupuncture done.
Uh-huh.
And this lady is very intelligent, and we tend to get in these deep conversations. We're talking about energy and sustaining energy over long periods of time. Because as entrepreneurs, we tend to burn out because we're constantly revving our engine, because we got to go, go, go. We got to do more, do more, do more. And she said to me, hey, I want you to approach your days this way. And I want you to approach your energy this way. She said, I want you to start every day thinking that you have 10 gold coins. And the objective is to have 10 gold coins when you end the day. So she said, there's going to be certain things that you do during your day that are going to take energy away from you. So you have to give those gold coins. And there's going to be certain things and people that are during your day are going to give you gold coins as well. So they're going to feed you energy. So as soon as you can reflect more on what is taking away from energy from you and giving more energy to you, it's obvious. It becomes super obvious to all of us, especially when we're in like a game theory. It's okay. Well, I got to eliminate the things that take away energy, and I got to add the things that give me energy. And I think once we start to get into that, and certainly not, I have not mastered. Once we get into that position where we're doing a majority of things that are giving us gold coins, then we're going to be way more productive. We're going to be in our strengths. We're going to be happier, and we're certainly going to be able to grow a lot faster.
Yeah, man, I love that. This is cool. We may not even talk about real estate on this episode, because I think this is super profound, and ultimately, I believe it's the first thing people should start to understand about themselves, and being aware of why they're feeling certain ways before they even start studying, lease options and the creative financing that we're going to talk about in a little bit. But so we'll spend a little bit more time on it here. You mentioned reflecting at the end of the day, kind of analyzing how the day went, why you may feel a certain way, or why things made you feel a certain way. What other practices do you have? Because I've seen a piece of content from you that was talking about a morning routine. What other practices do you have that help facilitate just being aware and just being prepared for the day, I guess?
That's a great question. Now, I want to start with this. So we teach three things specifically when it comes to Smart Real Estate Coach, our company, and that's mindset, skill set, and systems. But number one is mindset. So I'm more than happy to sit on this, because for every great entrepreneur, whether real estate or whatever, every great person, anybody that's extremely productive in the world, there's a base foundation of mindset. It has to be, because you have to grow and evolve. It's the universe. You're ever expanding. If you're not expanding, you're dying. I mean, that's the rule of the universe. And there's a certain level of happiness that comes when you're growing, like when you're accomplishing things. Like we're built here to accomplish things with specific strengths that we have, that we're born into, to eventually change the world. And that's my true belief. So,
Love it. Yeah.
So when it comes to some key pillars that I have that set me up for success, I would say the number one thing that I do on a weekly basis, and again, it was something that I've learned. I'm not going to take credit for any of these. It's similar to when people say they're self-made. I think that's the craziest thing in the world, because everybody has mentors, everybody has friends, everybody has the right people that surrounded themselves at something in order to get them there.
Yeah.
And Sunday routine, that's the number one thing that's made me overproductive, or it constantly brings you to the next level. And what do I mean by that? Every single Sunday for about from like 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. And sometimes it takes that long, sometimes it doesn't. All I do is I look back on my previous week, and I look at like all the lessons that I've learned. So that daily reflection that I had at the end of the day, I look back and I say, all right, what did I learn this week? And then secondly, I look back and say, what was some major wins that I had this week? Because all I'm always trying to do is, how do I make a change if I'm seeing a challenge and or doing something wrong? That's the feedback I'm getting. Or how do I continuously build momentum on the good things that I'm doing? That's like, oh, it's a great habit. Let's keep this in the routine. This is getting me the results I want. So I look at that. And then what else I do is I look at my key goals for, we typically are in trimesters, but I look at the key goals for my trimester, break it down to my monthly goal, and then break it down to my weekly goal. And I say, okay, well, what are the top things that are going to get me towards the goal so I can accomplish this week, so I can win this week, and I can win the month, and then win the trimester? So I look at that and I find out what those key top 3 things are that are going to move the needle the fastest. And then I make sure that those are implemented into my calendar. So once I've kind of done that breakdown, I implement those things in my calendar to make sure that those things are definitely going to be done, because I have to accomplish 3 things. It has to be those. And typically those go right at the beginning of my day when I have the most energy. And as Brian Tracy says, eat the frog. Because no matter what, by 9 a.m., I want to make sure that if my day gets cut short, if something's going on with the family or whatever, I know I hit my major goal for that day. So I break that down, and then and I do that every single week. I just make sure that I'm in planning mode, because there's a major difference between action and planning. Your brain tends not to operate that smooth when you're trying to balance both at the same time. So I try to plan everything out on Sundays, make sure that I've hit all my goals from last week. And if there's anything that needs to carry over, make sure that gets on my calendar, and then look at what my next upcoming week is. That way, when 7 a.m. hits after my morning routine, I'm in action mode. I'm already taking action. I don't have to think about what I'm doing. I already have my checklist. I already have my things that I need to accomplish. And that way I can just get right into it. And then at the end of the day, go back to my reflection, start the next day with a morning routine, same thing. And I just repeat. I repeat that every week.
Yeah, that's huge, man. I totally agree with that. I do something very similar. It's usually Sunday evenings for a couple hours, do the exact same thing, kind of look at the week, revisit my longer term goals, usually that are quarterly based. Usually I've got some for the year, and then I break them down to the quarter, and then obviously break them down to the months and the week. And I see and then I ask the same question, like, what are the most important next steps to move the chess pieces along toward that goal? And one really good question, I don't remember who asked it, but a good way to frame it is, okay, if this week I only accomplish 3 things, what should they be? And then every day, like, hey, today, like, if I only accomplish 1 thing today, what should it be? And that's a really good way to bring your priorities to the top and the most important things to move the needles, because it's so easy to be in the mix of the business and the day to day to be sucked to the important but not as important things that you need to take care of. And I like the idea of making sure that they're scheduled early in the day, so they kind of have their time to hopefully get them done even early in the week, right? Maybe have those 3 things accomplished by Wednesday night. So you've got them out of the way. You've got Thursday and Friday to catch up or not worry about them. So I think that's huge. And it's just, those are some awesome practices. And I'm sure that is part of your success in what you're doing.
Well, Justin, that's the difference between it's the difference between people that are like working in the business and who are working on the business. Again, I went into real estate because of the benefits that real estate brings me. I like doing deals. I really do, but I don't want to do deals 24/7. I want to do deals because it's going to provide me financial freedom, and it's going to provide me time freedom, and it's going to provide additional opportunities in the future because of those other things. So I'm always looking at it from a business owner standpoint or an entrepreneurial standpoint. And that's sometimes you're in the business, sometimes you're on the business. So Sundays are strategy sessions, so that way you don't get caught in the weeds. Because you could be in the weeds for Monday through Friday, but you need to be able to pick your head up so that way you can make strategic decisions and move the business forward. Because if not, you're just going to stay in that rat race. Even though you could be getting great money, I know tons of people who are making a lot of money, but strategically, they're not moving the needle forward in their business.
Yeah, it's huge. So let's talk about those deals that you like to do, because you guys have you have a certain expertise where with the creative financing that I think is not talked about enough across the real estate world, and it's just not known as commonly as wholesaling or flipping. So talk to us kind of about what your business model is, and then we'll kind of dive into some of the details there.
Yeah, I love it, Justin. Just don't tell everyone. It's the best thing because we fish in the same pond. It's awesome. We fish in some of the same ponds as the wholesalers and the flippers and realtors, and we just have different options. So we're creating different. We're solving different challenges, and I really do think that this is becoming a very progressive niche, because with everything that's happened with COVID, there's so many people right now that either, number one, have a property in which they're dealing with certain scenarios such as default or tax liens, and they have so much equity in their property, these sellers, but the only way that they can actually continue to have that equity is if somebody comes in and catches up their arrears or their default or their tax liens, or if not, they're going to lose everything. So we've been able to help people through this process right now. Yeah. And then right now, buyers, there are, at any given time, it's roughly about 82% of the market cannot qualify for a loan. Buyers that want to buy a house cannot qualify for a loan.
Wow.
And now that COVID is happening, it's so relevant right now. The criteria of a perfect buyer for a bank now is shrinking. Like, it's becoming less and less. It's becoming harder and harder, I should say, to be able to qualify for a loan. So although it's the facade out there right now is every market's hot, everybody's getting loans. We're at a deficit in houses available. But the truth is, banks are not lending, and they're actually supposed to lend significantly less, like up to a third is what I was reading some articles, up to a third less over the next year than they did before. So it's just becoming harder and harder. So buyers need like a rent-to-own program that we have, because they just need time in order to get financeable. And that's what we do, is we provide them time. So to backtrack just slightly, when we're talking creative financing, we're primarily talking about lease options. We consider them lease purchases. We're talking about owner financing or seller financing. Those are interchangeable, meaning the seller is gonna hold the mortgage on the property and finance the property for you, and/or buying property subject to the existing loan, which just means you're going to close on the house and you're going to acknowledge that there's still a loan there, and you'll take title at that time.
Yeah, this is awesome. I think this is super this is super cool because you're right. You're looking at the same markets, but you have a cool tool in your tool belt that maybe somebody that's flipping homes or wholesaling doesn't necessarily have. And that is, at least from what I understand, and I'm not, you're the expert, not me, but from what I understand, you're not necessarily looking, in fact, you're probably not looking for where a flipper or wholesaler, or even me, I use the Burr method. So I'm buying and I'm rehabbing, putting a renter in it, and then refinancing my capital out to do it again. That's kind of my method. But we're all looking for distressed properties and distressed sellers. But from what I understand, you're not necessarily looking for that. There is some of that as far as this, like you said, the tax situation, maybe a distressed seller, but I'm betting that you probably don't have to do a lot of rehab in general. Usually you can, it's more of the situation for the seller. Is that what I understand? Is that accurate?
Yeah, that's 100% accurate. I've done hundreds of homes or purchased and sold hundreds of homes locally here in Southern New England, but also I've participated in thousands of deals across the United States, and I've never once picked up a hammer. So if you're listening right now and fixing and flipping is not your method for you, I believe in an ecosystem of real estate. I think there's all these niches because they all work together, and each and every piece or investor that's in it, plus realtors and brokers, everybody has their place because there's so many properties and they all need to be serviced at some point by someone.
Yeah.
We tend to work with sellers that are either in a good financial situation, like buying a property on a lease purchase, because they don't need the equity now and they would rather get more money for the house over time. Similar to owner financing, the seller's going to hold the mortgage on the property for a period of time, sometimes 10, 20, 30 years sometimes, because they want to have an investment with you. So obviously they don't need the equity now. So we tend to be working with people that are in good financial, stable situations primarily, and they're willing to wait for larger profits versus the more distressed situation. So obviously most of our properties are nice move-in ready homes. Now, doesn't mean that we can't work in that space, because I know a lot of wholesalers right now are starting to move into our space because they're sick of tossing deals aside that don't fit inside their box, like a property that is selling for what the seller owes. Well, that may not work for a fix and flip, or that may not work for a wholesaler, but that's a great deal for me because I'll buy the property subject to the existing loan and hold on to that bad boy until the appreciation comes up and the principal pay down goes down. So it's anything that really doesn't fit inside everybody else's boxes. It's perfect. It works perfect in creative financing.
Yeah. So in my mind, I'm running through like, okay, how would I change my process to start using some of these tactics? And right now I invest in Ohio. It's I live in Utah, but I invest in Ohio.
Nice.
So I'm just cruising through the MLS. Like don't tell anybody, but there's plenty of deals on the MLS right now in Ohio. and I'm just cruising through and I'm looking for stuff that's priced well below market, right? Everything's coming in like at 75 or 80K, and all of a sudden, boom, there's a 55K. I'm going to look at that one. I'm going to see what's up with it. Usually it's beat up, it's distressed, it's a mess. The seller may be in a distressed situation also. And I'm pursuing that property. But from what I'm hearing is you guys can basically, any house that's for sale, you could approach and just see if the seller's in a situation where they don't need their equity right away. And they're willing to hold the loan or make more money
or keep the loan
over time, right?
Yeah.
And so, which ultimately, I'm sure it's not every seller, but every seller ought to consider that if they have the situation that we're talking about here. So it seems like your lead volume could be higher, your opportunities, where right now, especially in most markets, like finding a house where the numbers work on a flip or a wholesale, that can be a little bit more difficult for sure.
No, it absolutely can, because it's an extremely competitive market.
Yeah.
Thanks to Chip and Joanna Gaines, right? They make it look fun. They make it look interesting. Which I'm sure you can attest to. Just it's like everything looks awesome on TV, but it's like as soon as you start to run numbers, run contractors, deal with all those moving parts, it becomes it's a lot more difficult than most people think when it comes to that aspect. And then to have 1,000 people in the same market trying to get the same deal because there's one property, like you said, that fits the ARV model for you.
Yeah. Right.
It works out. Compared to us, we're solving more. It could be psychological challenges, meaning like death or divorce. It could be somebody relocating, or somebody has 2 mortgages and they have a second home. So there's a lot of different scenarios that we can work in. The number one thing is the seller has to either have little to no equity in the property, or if they have equity, they're going to be willing to wait for it. But the thing is too, I mean, basically we have so many moving parts and so many levers you can pull on that you can create any type of creative financing deal. It just depends on your position as a real estate investor. Typically, we don't put down our own cash. We don't sign personally. We definitely don't sign personally. Yeah. We typically don't raise investor capital either. But after you start doing deals, you'll have other deals that you can pull equity from and put down maybe a small deposit if it was going to get you a much better deal. So you can start playing with some, even further, get more creative once you have a little bit of capital in your pocket as well. Let's say you're a vet and you've done some deals now. So a lot of cool opportunities. And what people are starting to love now too is we have a trademark 3 payday system, which it's fun on the front end. Like I buy all the properties and my brother-in-law sells all of our properties locally. And so I love talking about solving sellers' problems, but it's once you have the property under agreement and you sell it, we either sell it through a rent-to-own program or on owner financing. And we create 3 distinctive paydays from these deals. So it's not just about one payday. We collect a non-refundable deposit from our buyers. We collect cash flow every single month. So like the delta between what I have to pay on the mortgage of the seller and what I can collect for rent. And then we're building principal in this property as well, because we're making the mortgage payments, or we're making the payments directly to the seller. So we're gaining equity in the deal. And then we usually raise the premium on the house. So when the buyer goes and gets their own loan in the near future, or even farther out, if we end up doing owner financing, we're creating not only money now, money over time, but also money in the future too that we can count on, which is amazing when you talk about one deal. We just did a recent deal in Jacksonville, $150,000 house, owner financing. So we closed on the property and the seller hold the mortgage. A $500 principal only payment, 0% interest. And we had a 60-month or 72-month term. If it goes the full length of the time, we're making over $160,000 in revenue on that deal on a $150,000 house.
Man, I can't even, I don't understand why anybody would not be doing this. This is awesome. And I love the concept of the 3 paydays. So, and you kind of ran us through a deal here, but maybe give us another scenario, because I think this is a new concept to a lot of people. Give us another scenario, like nuts and bolts, like from where you found the lead, what the scenario is, and kind of walk us through that process over the whole deal.
Yeah, it's a great one. So, so that was the owner financing deal where we took title. Right now, I'm currently working on a property. I want to focus on the owner financing, the sub-2s. Sure. I'm sure Chris, and I go back and listen to that podcast, I hope he focused on the lease purchase, which is a great one, a great technique when you first get in the business. But once you're in it, we focus heavily on subject twos and owner financing because we want to take title more than we just want control of the property. So right now, I'm working on a property in down in central Connecticut. Seller is on the market right now. He refinanced the property about 2 or 3 years ago, and the market hasn't really shifted in that area. He owes $289 on the property. He's selling the property right now for $295. So as you can see, if he sells with a realtor, he comes out of pocket anywhere from 15 to like 25,000.
Wow.
If he gets full price. So his options, and he was in, this seller was actually, he was in banking for a long period of time. When I approached him with this concept, he said, I wish I knew about this earlier, because me and my wife have been sitting in this property. We're trying to move to Washington because my grandson's now 2 years old, but we weren't ready to. And he said, I even looked into short selling the property.
Yeah.
And I said, let's not do that, because let's not damage your credit. I have some options that we'll just take control of the property, or we'll close on it. And that way you'll be paid out in the near future. You're not going to get any equity in the deal, but you're not going to lose here. And he said he even approached a short sale. And what the banker told him was, even though the difference, he was going to have to pay capital gains on or taxes on the difference because of the short sale. So it's crazy. So he would have been even further in the hole.
Yeah.
So what I did was I just approached the seller and I said, look, we have two options. I can either buy it on lease purchase, or I can buy it subject to the existing loan. It's going to really be your comfort level right now, because the lease purchase title stays in your name, the subject to the title transfers. So just first knowing the seller and building a relationship, I present both options because I really want them to be comfortable with whatever route we're going. And a majority of the time, if I take it on a lease purchase, I can convert it later once they know I'm making payments on time. Once they know I'm taking care of the property, they're more than okay with handing over title.
Yeah.
So tie up the property for the $295. We agreed at this point in time that it was at least going to be 5 years to no end date. The expectation was, I said, the intention is we're going to try to get this thing cashed out in 5 years, but it's really going to depend on the market, and it's going to depend on how fast we can pay down this principal.
Yeah.
So that deal, if I'm just looking at it from a 10,000 foot view, buy it for $295. You can sell it on the rent to own market. My guess is probably at like $329,900, somewhere below there, because you're selling it for 2 or 3 years out. So let's say that's let's say $330,000. You got yourself a $35,000 premium on the property. Monthly payment is on the $295. It's like I think it's like $1,600. But you can probably get let's say $1,900 or $2,000 for the area. So you get $400 spread. And then the principal pay down the properties, just make things simple. It's like high fours, but it's just about $500 principal only payment. I mean, principal coming off. Yeah. Off that mortgage payment. So if you did the numbers for about 36 months, I mean, I think you're sitting at, just off the top of my head, right around $60,000 deal.
That's so cool. That's so cool. So you're getting, this guy's in a pinch because he can't really sell it's going to cost him to sell the property, which obviously is not a cool situation to be in. So you're able to swoop in there. You're able to say, all right, well, we can help you out of this. We'll take over you're basically taking over the property. In some cases, the title transfers. In some cases, it doesn't. Either way, you're taking control of that. You're getting somebody to buy this house on a lease to own, lease to purchase option. So they're not a tenant. They quote unquote own the property.
Consider them 100% buyers. They're treated like buyers. Mm-hmm. They actually sign in front. We have in our system to have them sign in front of an attorney, even though it's a formal lease signing. Mm-hmm. We want them to be aware of the levity of the situation. Yeah. Plus, when they come in with a non-refundable deposit of anywhere from 3 to 10% down on the house, and we always get them, our aim is always at least get them to 10%, if not 20% over time of their lease, which is important because not only are they going to be able to qualify for a loan, but they're going to be able to get some of the best loans. It's the reason right now why we've cashed out, I think, 12 or 15 properties during COVID. Because of our rent-to-own program, we've set them up in a position where banks were accepting them because they had all the criteria that they needed while they're during the process, and we could extend them if they didn't, so that way they could still buy that house and go get a loan.
That's interesting. And the whole time that they're there, they're maintaining the property, right? If something breaks, like it's their house, right? It's kind of like just like anybody else with a mortgage on a house, right? They're taking care of it. So your holding costs, or whatever you want to call them, your maintenance and repairs are non-existent, right? That's on the owner or the leaser, I guess, right?
100%. Yeah. I mean, us being the investor. So let's say it's a lease purchase. They're also known as sandwich leases, because you have a lease purchase agreement with the seller, and then you're selling the property on a lease purchase agreement with the buyer, and you're in the middle, and you're more or less controlling the deal. So worst case scenario, which it's very rare if our buyers default, because we have a very strict vetting process, and like most other people out there that are teaching this type of creativity, we actually care if the buyer gets to the finish line. So we have a very strict process to get them there. So it's very unlikely they're going to default unless there's a death or a divorce. So buck does stop with you.
Yeah.
But you're collecting a 3 to 10% non-refundable deposit, or even more over time. So as being a real estate investor, I would put money aside and make sure that you're all set just in case you needed to handle any type of default. And then you could place another buyer in the property again and do the exact same thing.
It's so cool. I love this. I'm super excited to be learning about it. So if somebody's looking for a deal property that would work with this kind of option, it sounds like they can go find them on the MLS, but ultimately you're going to have a conversation with the seller to understand their situation before you can make any offers or any deals, right? You've got to know what's going on behind the seller. Is that correct?
Yeah, we go direct to seller.
Sure.
We have realtors that give us referrals. We have some wholesales that give us referrals, or other people in different niches, but we usually go direct to sellers. Our main lead sources are expired listings is a big one, because they've already been the traditional market, and for whatever reason, if they didn't sell, so they're typically more open to creative deals because they're looking for alternative solutions. For sale by owners, for rent by owners. For rent by owners is really great right now because a lot of tired landlords are now sick of dealing with this, and are actually scared because of the laws going on right now with tenants. So if you're in a really good position, in a confident position, you're starting to do deals, for rent by owners is great.
Yeah.
And then of course we do some niche lists and some direct mail or pull specific lists with like a database like PropStream.
Yeah. Love that. So what's something that separates, what is the characteristic or a mindset characteristic that separates those that succeed in real estate or, in business in general from those that don't? And I think about the people that you're coaching, right? So you can think about the people that you watch succeed through your program. Like, what separates those that succeed from those that don't?
Yeah, two things just come to mind, and of course, there's no right answer here, right? But two things come to mind. Number one is expectations. Like creative financing is a simple niche, but it's not easy. Like I wouldn't consider real estate easy no matter what.
No.
Because even if you're just lending money, you're still going to make sure that you're doing your homework on everyone you're lending money to.
Right.
So I would just say it's expectations, and primarily like your resources versus what you think you're going to get for deals. Like if you're coming in and you work, 8 to 8 every day, and you have an hour a day, and you have 4 days a week that you can dedicate to making outbound calls or contacting sellers, and you think you're going to do 20 deals and be a millionaire at the end of the year, it's not realistic.
Right.
So it's just understanding like your resources, time and money. So I really want to be clear with that. And especially when I'm talking about money, I mean, being able to either fund some marketing or getting into like a mentorship.
Yeah.
Because you either pay for it now or you pay for it later. We get asked all the time, why would I join coaching? It's because you're paying for the community, you're paying for the experience, you're paying for the support in the systems to be able to accomplish what you want to accomplish. And you can either pay for that now and have everything laid out with a bow and have 100 mentors in our community help you throughout the entire process, or you can go do it on your own, but just expect that it's going to take much longer, and you're going to either lose deals or you're going to lose money because there's certain things you just can't see because you don't know from expert.
And it's just going to take longer for sure. There's no question.
And then the last thing is what I kind of alluded to all the way back at the beginning, which was something that, was built into my genes, but it's not built into everyone. And I would just say it's been a muscle that I've worked, and it's not something I always had. And that's grit. Like, you're in real estate, you're going to have 100 no's before you get a yes. Like, you're, especially at the beginning of your real estate journey, learning the systems, learning the skills, working on your mindset. If you don't have the grit to be able to withstand that, it's like, what was it? Think and Grow Rich, 3 feet from gold. I've seen it happen too many times where people work hard. They're just starting to make progress and they give up.
Yeah.
It's like, because that's what happens. And just as entrepreneurs in general, or when you're learning a new skill, it's like you get so frustrated, and then all of a sudden it clicks, and it's like just making it past that frustration period. And it's actually, if you study like flow by Stephen Kotler, it's in that cycle. It's like you have to go with this. It's part of like the flow aspect where you like just get something, and that you have to go through the struggle. And then as soon as you get to the end of struggle, then it's a release. And once you're in release, it's like when you have runner's high, right? When you're going for a run, all of a sudden you're running, you're struggling for a little bit, and about 15, 20 minutes in, all of a sudden you like forget where you're running. Mm-hmm. You're not really hearing the music anymore, and you're just coasting. It's like you meant that struggle phase, and all of a sudden you went and released, and then all of a sudden, while you're in release, you get into flow, and all of a sudden you have the best ideas that you've ever had in your life. Yeah. And that's similar to what happens with a lot of people. It's just they don't have enough grit to make it through the struggle phase, but as soon as they make it through the struggle phase, all of a sudden everything clicks. Deals start coming into flow because you're talking to sellers and you're negotiating, and everything you've learned is now just flowing out of your mouth, and you're asking the right questions and you're structuring the right things, and that's when deals start to come into play. So I always remind people about that one story about 3 feet from gold.
I love that, man. That is super profound. So tell us more. So tell us where people can learn more about you and the program that you guys are offering, and just basically learn from you.
Yes, I'll give you 2 resources right now. Chris and I, we do a 35-minute. It's a free master's class. It'll dive into these 3 different types of techniques that we use. We'll also talk about the buyers and in the business model in itself. And that's smartrealestatecoach.com/masters with an S, masters class. And then I would love to chat with everyone, either myself, my father-in-law, or our strategic expert, Brian O'Neill, who actually retired from his job as a salesman and now helps out new people coming through our program as well. So he's an amazing success story, and actually still buys and sells real estate with us in the trenches. So don't all of our coaches. Everybody has their own individual business. It's really cool that works out. So smartrealestatecoach.com/action. 6 questions. We'd love to hop on the phone with you, figure out what your challenges are, and see if we're even a good solution or not.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to do that because I want to learn a little bit. I want to see how I can apply this in what I'm doing. I think this is awesome. And I think the tips and the strategy that you've mentioned about mindset early on in this conversation were spot on. I think they need to be discussed more across the different platforms that are out there. So, Zach, I appreciate it, man. I think this has been awesome. Thank you so much for being on with us. We'll definitely make sure these links are in the notes here, and hopefully we cross paths again. We can do something together.
Soon enough, my man.
Take care.
Thanks for listening to the Money Maven Project podcast. A true Maven shares knowledge with others, so be sure to share this podcast and leave a review. Thanks so much. And until next time, live life with intention.